Buddhism. So, Buddhism is one of the atheistic school of the Indian philosophy. It is called the atheistic school because basically it originated as a code of conduct against Brahmanism. So, atheist या नास्तिक in Hindi doesn't mean that it's something wrong. It is just called atheist because it doesn't believe in the superiority of Vedas. That is the reason the schools in the Indian philosophy are called Nastic schools because they do not believe in the authority of the Vedas. Their code of conduct is basically against Brahmanism. So it came up as a code of conduct and later it took the philosophical form. Certain section were considered superior as compared to the other sections, and everyone could not understand the descriptions that Brahmin used to give. The language of the Vedas was very difficult to understand. They used to talk in mantras and everything, which was difficult for a normal human being to understand, you know. And even Vedas had these metaphysical questions which talked about like heaven, hell, and other things. So Mahatma Buddha came up with this atheistic school. He his school was basically based on humanity. Humanism was the basic part of his school. And he basically believed that all these questions of heaven, all this question of hell, all this jargon in which these Vedas talk, it's a wastage of time. It's not practical. So he was like, we should focus on humanism. If the person next to you is unhappy, if you are unhappy in your life, then what is the point of all these things? What is the point of all these mantras and everything? If you are considering someone lower than you, for example, the caste system in Indian society, if you are considering some other person lower than you, as Buddha said that the way in which we are born is same, the way in which everyone is born is same, then how exactly you consider one person superior and the other person inferior? How exactly you consider that? So he said that I'm going to focus on dukh. There is suffering. Dukh is the highest suffering, so there is suffering in this world. So he gave that there are four noble truths. There are four truths about this world. There are four noble truths about this world. In Sarnath, he gave this. What are those four noble truths? So the first noble truth was that the world is full of suffering. The world is full of suffering. There is dukh in this world. Now, if there is suffering in this world, there must be a cause of the suffering. If I am suffering, for example, I'm not, for example, coronavirus, I'm having certain symptoms of the coronavirus, then the cause is the virus. I'm having cold, and I got myself checked. There was a cause that I had the virus in me. Similarly, he said that whatever is the suffering, there must be a cause. There must be a cause of the suffering, and this is known as Prathitya Samudpad. Prathitya Samudpad, the word Prathitya means in certain condition. In certain condition, the effect arises. The effect doesn't arise on its own. In certain condition, the effect arises. Prathitya Samudpad, the Hinian and the Mahayana school consider very differently. We are going to discuss it in the later stages. We are going to discuss Prathitya Samudpad in detail. Next is the cessation of the suffering. Now, I have the cause of the suffering. I know that, this was the reason the suffering happened. So now I am going to kill the suffering so that I can be happy. And how is it possible? Once do that, there will be nirvana. So the third is very philosophical, that I have to get rid of the suffering, and once I get rid of the suffering, I'll get nirvana. So how am I going to get this nirvana? For that, there is the fourth way. He has given a path for it, and the path is known as Ashtangic marg. The eight path, Ashtang means eight, marg. So there are eight steps that he gave. Once you go through those eight steps, you're going to uh, achieve nirvana. You're going to achieve the third step. You can see the first two steps are very pessimist, and he's talking about the suffering, he's talking about the cause of the suffering. The last two is what the philosophy is completely based upon. Now, explaining all this in detail, talking about the suffering, the first thing. So we know the history of Buddha. If we talk about how Buddha came into being, so Buddha came into being when he left his home. I'm going to tell you in a very fast forward method. So he got married and he went out, and one day he saw things. He saw a sick person, he saw a person with the old age, he saw a dead person. So while watching all this, he grew restless, he needed insurances, and in search of truth. So, and he was accompanied by five friends. And then the Buddha was born from Siddharth. Now, basically, this was so here. He's that is the reason the first noble truth was the world is full of suffering. He saw the suffering, so he gave the first noble truth on the basis of that. The second was the cause of the suffering. Obviously, if you now you know that there is suffering in this world, so what is the cause of the suffering? Because of that, he gave the Prathitya Samutpat. Now, the cause of the suffering, you might have heard about the theory of causation, that every effect must have a cause. Every effect must have a cause. It's very simple. If there is a fire, if there's a fire, there must be a cause of it. Something must be burning. Say wood was burning. So the effect will happen only if there is a cause. Or it is also known as the theory of dependent origin. The origin is dependent. Now, Buddha said that the effect will originate only if the cause is present. The fire will originate only if the wood or something is present. If there is no effect, there won't be any cause. And if I'm going to stop this effect, automatically the cause will be stopped. So, this is the idea. Before going to the third step, let's talk about the second step in detail. Pratitya Samutpad. In certain condition, this happens. So there is a causal condition. There is a cause of the effect. Hinian gave a literal meaning to it, where Pratitya, in certain condition, the rise of the effect, that if the cause will be there, the effect will be there, or otherwise it won't be theirs. And they did not explain about nirvana or the entire Pratitya Samutpad. So Hinian did not really focus much upon it. So Mahayan is basically that we will study. The Mahayan Pratitya Samutpad is something that we study. They believed in Satkaryavad. Satkaryavad. Satkaryavad means the effect is hidden in the cause. So if the cause is there, the effect is something hidden in it. So this is the relative explanation of the Pratitya Samutpad that was given. Prathitya Samutpad is the relative causation. This Mahayan talked about the relative causation. The fact that the effect is present in the cause, this is relative causation. So the Buddha preached non permanency, that no one is permanent, through Pratitya Samutpad. He tried to explain that the world is full of suffering and gave the 12-fold chain. He gave this 12-fold chain. And this 12-fold chain moved from cause to effect and effect to the cause. Now, I'm going to tell you this chain from effect to the cause. Dwadash Nidan. Dwadash in Sanskrit, Dwadash is 12. Nidan is the fold chain. Nidan is the chain. So it's 12-fold chain. Now let's talk about the 12 fold chain from effect to the cause. Now the first is Jaramaran. Jaramaran, Jara is the old age and Maran is death. So now the old age and the death are certain after taking birth. This is something, this effect is certain that you will be old aged and you'll be having death. So if you have a suffering of this, so this is like the basic suffering. Everyone is afraid of old age and death. So this is Jara Maran. So that is first effect. Now why this kind of suffering is happening? Why the suffering of Jara Maran is happening? Because of Jati. Jati means you have taken birth. Taking birth is Jati. Now why did you take the birth? To enjoy the material objects of this world, bhav, to enjoy the material objects of this world, you took the birth. Now, why did this desire to take the birth happen? So, the desire of enjoying the material object, this desire is upadan. Upadan. Now, and why the desired happen? Because you must be happy. That is the reason you desired something, right? If the chocolate makes you happy, then only you're going to desire it. So, Trishna, happy feelings. Happy feelings that originated is Trishna. Now, why did the happy feeling originated? Because you felt something, right? So, Vedna. Vedna means the contact of senses, the feeling of sorrow and happiness. So, whether you're happy or sad, so the contact of the senses caused this happy or sad. How did the contact happen? Through the senses. Sparsh. Through the senses, the contact is going to happen. What are the senses? Eyes, for example, I saw something, I heard something good, I tasted something good, and so on. So there are six senses, right? So the six senses, because of six senses, the sparsh happened. So the cause of the sparsh was the six senses. So six in Sanskrit is shad yatan. Shadiyatan. And now the Shadiyatan is the development of the six senses. Then is the Nam Roop. Nam Roop means the body that was developed. Whenever we developed this body, it is Nam Roop. Okay, there are the body, the Nam Roop body is made up of five skandhas: Roop, Sangyan, Vedana, Sanskar, Vigyan. Okay, the Roop is the earth, water, fire. We are going to study this in detail. So for now, we just have to understand that the five skandhas are there, and the composition of this five skandha is the soul. Okay, so the body is made up of five skandha, and the composition of the five skandha is the soul. So body has a soul now. Now you have Vigyan. Why does this Namroop happened? It's because of the Vigyan. It originates due to Sanskar. It means consciousness. Vigyan happened because of the Sanskar. That's the next step. Vigyan means consciousness. So in the embryo, when I was in the embryo, the consciousness happened, the first consciousness state of the present life. So this Consciousness happened as an embryo. Slowly, we are going to the physical state. Then the sanskar. Sanskar means the past. Sanskar are the in the past life you had ignorance. In the past life, you must be having ignorance. Whatever was your past life, from that you brought your sanskars. And the last is avidya. That's the biggest cause. This is the biggest cause. Avidya, this is the biggest cause, and this avidya is the root cause of all the suffering. So, if you want to remove dukh, if you want to remove dukh if you want to remove the suffering, then you remove avidya. You remove the ignorance. Once you remove the ignorance, this is going to break. The 12-fold chain is going to break. Once the 12-fold chain is going to break, you will get nirvana. Okay, so this is the idea. The Prathitya Samutpad is the idea. There are 12 in number, the 12 ways, the 12 cause and effect that happened. Now, the third thing which we talked about after Prathitya Samutpad is the cessation of the suffering. How we are going to have the cessation of the suffering? By if the avidya is removed, then automatically we are going to get the nirvana. How we are going to get the nirvana? For that also he gave the eightfold path, that is Ashtangik Marg. Now next we are going to study about the Ashtangik Marg, the eightfold path. मतलब नाउ आई अब मुझे पता चल गया कि मुझे निर्वाणा कैसे मिलेगा जब मेरी इग्नोरेंस चली जाएगी, और उसके लिए क्या तरीका है कि मेरी वो इग्नोरेंस कैसे जाएगी. सो उसके लिए एट फोल्ड पाथ है. नाउ द एट फोल्ड पाथ इज सिंपल. इट इज you can remember it like it is VRSCLERM and C. So this is a mnemonic. You can remember it. VRSCLERM. Okay. So the eightfold path. Ashtangik Marg. Asht in Sanskrit means eight. So the first is Samyak Drishti. Right view. We must all have a right view, a right way of looking at things, the right vision of reality. We must look at everyone in a good manner. Bura na dekho. So once we know the four noble truth that there is a suffering, the world, there's a cause, we can get nirvana. So once we see everything in a right manner, then automatically that's the first path. That's the first path, that you see everything in the right manner. Don't depend upon these Vedas and everything. See everything as it is. So right view is very important. Then our right resolve, samyak sankalp. So sankalp is very important. Sankalp means the commitment that I'm going to follow the fourfold path that was given. I'm going to follow the fourfold path. So that's my sankalp. So you have to do the right resolve. Then the speech. Speech. The way you speak must be very simple. You must be very soft spoken. So the right speech must be used. Unlike Vedas, who use jargons in order to explain things to the people, you should use right speech. Next is the conduct. Samyak karmant. So conduct, you have to perform the right conduct. Your actions must also be right. You must, for example, if I go outside my house and think about like jumping from the third floor, I will hurt myself. So my conduct must be right. If I don't want to hurt myself, I must not jump. right? So it is karmant. Your karma defines what you're going to do, what will happen to you. That's simple as that. So if whatever you want to be done with yourself, you do the right karma, you do the right conduct. So this is samyak karmant. Next is livelihood. Samyak ajivika. आपकी आजीविका, that must be proper. For example, if your profession, if, whatever profession that you're choosing, it must be in a way that it is right. It is not a wrong profession, or otherwise you won't be happy. It is going to cause you suffering. If you want some that you don't want suffering, you have to choose the profession that gives you happiness. Then the effort must be in the right direction. For example, whenever someone prepares for the exam, we say that your effort must be in the right direction. Your effort, according to Buddha, must be to root out the evil thought. If there is any kind of evil thought in your mind, your effort must be to root it out. It is okay to have evil thoughts in your mind, but you must try, you must do an effort to root it out. Then it is the recollection. R is the recollection, RM they are one, recollection and the mindfulness. So the next is mindfulness. Mindfulness matlab you keep recollecting the four noble truth that have been given. And last is the samadhi. Samyak samadhi. This is samyak smriti. Recollection smriti. And last is samadhi. Samyak samadhi. Concentration. If you have the right knowledge, you're going to get the divine and spiritual knowledge. Following this path, you're going to get the divine knowledge. So this is the eightfold path that is recommended in the Buddhism. It is also known as middle path because it is not like a rigorous sainthood is not there, or the complete materialism is also not there in this path. The Jainism, the path that Jainism gave, it's another atheistic school who do not believe in Vedas. But the path was very difficult for the people to follow because it was very rigorous. He gave a very middle path, and this path is this eightfold path by which you can achieve nirvana. So, this is the eightfold path. So, once you understood that what was the cause by the Prathitiya Samadpad, you saw that there is a cycle of the cause and the effect. Then it was the cessation of the suffering, and how you can get rid of those suffering. For that, there is a way and the path, that is a Shangic mark. The first noble truth was the world has suffering. How did he get the suffering? That we talked about old age and all those things. While he went out on his horse, uh, he saw all these things and he realized that the world is full of suffering. Then he went on the renunciation and he got the cause of them. Then he wanted to get rid of those suffering. He said that it is possible and you can get the nirvana. How you can get the nirvana? For that, he gave the eightfold path or the Ashtangic mark. So, this is the introduction of Buddhism.